Many of you know that I left 3 very lucrative businesses or careers in order to do what I'm doing with you. I no longer believe in what I was doing previously in the world, and this is what God has built me to do. And as part of Him building me to do this, He provided certain things for me to live out what I'm doing here until I am done with the ministry He set me apart to do. As He was building me, I knew that I was going to be dying for what I'm doing. He prepared me in advance for that, and we do see that in Scripture. I didn't know that that was in Scripture. I only knew that that's what He was preparing me for. It was only later that I read Revelation 12 and realized that the witnesses know they're going to die, that they are prepared in advance, that God counts the cost before He starts building. And so there came a point where He was testing me on this to see if I was going to be sturdy enough to give my life for what I'm doing. And part of that has been to give up my careers, all income. I do not have any income. I have lived on my savings thus far. I have lived on my retirement, cashed out my retirement. That's what I'm living on right now. And I'm going to be selling a building, a small commercial property, and that's what I will be living on until I die. And in the process of Him stripping me of my careers, He had me giving things away, including like giving away my expensive clothes and buying cheap clothes. These are not the things of the world, right? Giving things away, giving away my cash, giving to people who stole from me, giving to someone who tried to sue me. He has tested the structure. Well, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be selling this property, and I'll have about just enough to live on until I am removed from here, until I set this tent aside in a little over 2 years. And this has been an emotional decision to sell this property. I haven't done much with it as far as using the property, but God has fulfilled everything that He intended to do. I mean, obviously He intended for this to be a source of income for me, since what I do for free, so that there is no excuse for anyone and there is no hindrance to anyone receiving it. In fact, I received a message not that long ago from someone and I receive these often, I don't think I can afford your fee and this and that. And when I tell them it's for free, that everything that I do is for free, but that they need to do a fast, I don't hear from them again. It's like the weirdest thing. Like, I don't have money to pay for services, but I really would like to work with you. Can you recommend someone who does what you do? And then I tell them you have to do a fast, but I will work with you for free. Never hear from them again. Very weird. But you know what? There will be no excuse. There will be no excuse, because I have given full accessibility to the shepherding that I offer. Full accessibility. There's no excuse. So as I've been contemplating what God did, because, once He gave me permission to sell the building, a lot of questions have come up. Like, why did you have me buy that building at all if I wasn't going to use it? Well, I had set out to buy a building, years before He called me to Him. When I bought my house, I said the next thing I'm going to buy is a building. And that was back when I was of the mindset that I was just going to keep building and building and building my empire, mine. But God called me. And when He called me, I had already saved up a certain amount of money for that building to put the down payment. And then He told me I was going to be purchasing the building. And He also told me that I was going to receive money for the building, which I didn't know. Why would I need money for the building? I had already sort of saved the down payment for it. But I did need money to remodel it, actually. It was filthy disgusting. It was a stinky marijuana dispensary with squatters around the building, storing, their drug paraphernalia. I mean, drug dispensaries don't attract the greatest people either, but the place had good bones. It was so beautiful inside. It's really, really beautiful. And so there were a lot of things that had to happen. Like, the squatters had to go, their belongings had to go. The word needed to be put out that this was no longer a place for that. So the reputation of the building needed to change. I planted a garden, I redid the roof, I remodeled the entire inside. I didn't choose so much as a door handle, a faucet, nothing without God. And He told me as I was remodeling that building that He was remodeling me at the same time. He was rebuilding me. I did not yet realize that He would be teaching me the role that I would have with His temple. But I remember my friend Ray saying, it's kind of like David wanting to build a temple to God, when I was telling him about the dreams and visions I had for this place. I remember him very clearly saying that. Oh, it's kind of, reminds me of David wanting to build the temple for God. So I want to tell you the things that God has spoken to me about with regard to that temple, especially in line with the Festival of Tabernacles that we're celebrating right now. And I think it's so beautiful that God gave me this permission to sell the building at a time when we're observing the Festival of Tabernacles, so that he would make it very clear to my heart what he had done with me and this building, and how he's taught me to clean up and build his temple. Now, the witnesses have a different responsibility than the multitude in white robes. All of us are sharing through our testimony. That's what we've been given. That's our lampstand. That's that place that God says, I haven't given you light to put it under a bowl. No one gives light to something to put it under a bowl. They put it on a stand for it to shine for the whole room. You're the light of the world. He's given you a stand, and he's been building that stand, that lampstand, throughout your life. And that is the testimony on which he's going to testify, on which he's going to shine his light, and he's going to say, yes, this is my handiwork. Yes, what she's saying is true. The prophets called people back to God. God's established this law. He told us that if we get far, that we need to return to him when we start seeing these things. By the time God starts sending his prophets, destruction is coming. He does nothing without warning through his prophets first. That's what we're told in Amos. Then he sent his son to sacrifice, to be the ultimate sacrifice for sin, fulfilling the law and the promise that was given that a Messiah would be sent in order to cover those who believed in faith. And if you believe in faith, then righteousness is attributed to you. It's been that way since the beginning. If you believe in faith, then what is coming out of your right hand, your forehead and your mouth, your deeds, your thoughts, and the way you speak is going to line up with what you believe in your heart. And that's either going to reflect the seal of God or the mark of the beast. He sent his son to give us the command to love, and that all laws are fulfilled in love. Love for God first. That's the first and greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. He sent his apostles to testify, to witness to what they had seen and heard from the Messiah. Even Paul, who never saw him with his eyes, at least as far as documentation is concerned in the Bible, heard him, knew him. They testified, and they parented the early church. Even with Paul referring to himself as a father to the early church, not to call him father, but as a father in that role of parenting the early church. Counterfeit Christianity was introduced through Constantine the Fake in the Catholic Church, and the prostitutes that bore out of her through the Reformation. No one ever told you to reform anything. No one ever told any of the reformists to reform anything. God said, return to him. If you're focused on him and his word and his truth, all you ever need to do is return to him. You don't need to draw anything new up or make a name for yourself or capitalize on the temple that he is building for himself, not for you, not for any false prophet, not for any false teacher. It's his. The witnesses are calling people back because that harlot Catholic Church and the prostitutes that bore out of her have defiled this temple. Remember in the second temple how the Greeks defiled the temple and they encouraged people to defile themselves in every way, to present defiled, unacceptable offerings to God, to desecrate his Sabbath. And Mattathias and the Maccabees fought, and they cleaned up that temple and they got it ready to rededicate. And Jesus was celebrating that festival of rededication. We see it in the book of John. The witnesses are calling you back. They're telling you these are the defilements: Christmas, Easter, pagan cross, Sunday Sabbath, false doctrines, already saved doctrine, false messiahs, false covenant. This is the truth. You need to return to his holy days. The witnesses are returning the church to the truth. They're returning the church to God. They're not branding themselves. They're not making a business for themselves. They're not prostituting the church to anything. They're bringing the church back. And Christ is pulling them out of the nations and bringing them to Israel, pulling them out of Babylon and pulling Babylon out of them. The multitude in white robes will carry that torch when the witnesses die. These next couple years are a time for you to be built by those witnesses of God. And so you need to discern who they are. You need to discern, because there's only 144,000 in the entire world right now. We know this because the word says the multitude in white robes could not be counted, and yet the witnesses are 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe. That's a spiritual tribe. Blood descent is nothing. If you're spiritual Israel, you're also in a spiritual tribe, one of the 12 spiritual tribes of Israel, okay? So don't get tripped up on ethnicity. Ethnicity is nothing. The 144,000 have been calling God's people back simultaneously with these trumpets blowing, which is what God has been doing. He's been separating the wheat from the tares. Those who respond and come to him, those are his people. Those who don't are not. Those who respond to the call of his prophets are his people. Those who don't are not. So when I tell you that I am a witness, that's a big claim right there. And you need to discern, am I living in congruence with what his witnesses and his people do? Am I taking from you? Do I have a hotline where you can donate money? Do I mince words? Do I coddle you all the way to hell? Or do I speak on the word? Do I speak on my own authority or the authority of the world so that you will accept what I have to say with ease? Or do you need to struggle a little bit and pray and ask God, and then he testifies to what I'm doing? You do need to discern who I am and what I'm doing. Am I living the high life? Is that what I'm doing? Does everyone love me? Do I have hundreds of thousands of followers or tens of thousands of followers on YouTube? No. This is not a message for the world. This is a message for God's people alone. And that's the reason why God set me up the way that he did in my career, so that I would have enough to live on to do his ministry without selling out, so that I would not serve both God and money. Because as he says, you will love one and hate the other. You do need to discern if the claim that I'm making is true. It's important. It matters. And if he testifies that that is true, then it should hold weight in your life. Then the admonitions that I give you should hold weight in your life. When I say you need to clean up your YouTube channel and you need to get single-minded for God, and there are a little over 2 years before the Antichrist rises, and that fourth trumpet is getting ready to blow, and the light's about to go out of those who swear falsely in his name. So it's very important that you're discerning who you're listening to. And if someone is making a claim like this, like what I'm saying, that this is what God set me apart to do, this is what he told me I'm doing, you have to go back to him and you've got to discern, is what she's saying true? If you've not done that, please go do that. Ask him to reveal to you whether that is the truth or it's not the truth, because he will reveal to you either way. The role of the witnesses right now are to bring God's people back to him, shepherd them back to him, clean up the temple, get rid of the false doctrines, return, not reform, return you back to him. That's what the witnesses are doing. The other thing that the witnesses are doing is teaching you how to walk in the covenant that God has extended to you, how to work out that covenant for salvation. That's the reason why I have a workshop, to teach you how to do that individual work. And there are a lot of things that have come against people being able to fulfill their covenant. First of all, false doctrine, worthless shepherds, parenting that is being done over, thousands of years without the Spirit of God by those living under counterfeit Christianity and deluding themselves into thinking that they can be part of the world and his kingdom. Those are two different kingdoms. And so what we're dealing with at this point are a lot of really wounded people who need healing from their unresolved wounds that the world's been calling trauma and making it a diagnosis and convincing you that you have to live with that. No, you don't. It is a hindrance to God. You don't just manage some PTSD diagnosis. Everybody has trauma. All trauma is unresolved suffering. When you resolve that suffering in Christ, you come to understand what he's been building in you, and he will heal and seal you so that the enemy cannot continue to attack you. Mental health has nothing on Christ. Mental health cannot heal. The only one who can heal is the one who created you. And if you believe he created you, you got to believe that he can heal you. So these are the things that the witnesses are doing. And the witnesses are what? What are they doing? What is the fundamental thing they're doing? How are they doing this? By testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. They share their testimony. What is their testimony of? What Christ has done in them. They are testifying to Christ because this is required in God's court of law, that there be 2 or more witnesses in order for a matter to be established, in order for someone to be convicted or acquitted. And this is the second requirement in order to triumph over the devil. The first is the blood of the Lamb. The second is the testimony of the witnesses. That's why there are going to be people coming against the witnesses, calling them a cult, saying that they're returning you back to the law, all of the things that, people accuse me of. It does not matter. For this reason, you need to go and discern this with God, because some of the things that I say are going to be difficult for you to hear. And some of the things that other people are saying are going to tickle your ears. They're going to be all too easy for you to hear. Tens of thousands of subscribers to their message, hundreds of thousands of people who subscribe to their message. But God says many are called, but few are chosen. He says it's hard for the righteous to be saved. He says that people are not going to accept this message readily. They didn't accept it from him or his apostles. You think they're going to readily accept it from his witnesses? Paul was being accused of going against God. Paul was being accused of being a cult or a sect. Jesus was being accused of having a demon. And he said, if the head of the house is called Beelzebul, how much worse will it be for his household? If they hated you, remember they hated me first. Discern your teachers. Blessed are you when people say all kinds of evil against you and when they persecute you, for in the same way they treated the prophets before you. What will these people look like? Just like that. Just like the precedent that God has set. Will they be on the bestseller lists with their books and everything else? No. Will they advertise themselves as prophet and messianic rabbi? Is that what they're going to do? No. They don't have a shtick. They don't have a branding. They're doing the same thing as the prophets before us, the apostles, and as Christ. Discern your teachers. You must discern your teachers. If someone is claiming to be a witness, I consider that to be a big claim. I also consider that my life had better reflect the calling of that claim. I had better not be leading people all the way to hell. I had better not be exploiting the position that God has given me. I had better be low, just like every other servant he's ever had. I had better be hated by the world and not loved or accepted by the world. The only people the world loves and accepts are those who belong to the world. The Billy Grahams, the Jonathan Kahns, the John MacArthurs. You understand? I don't have some mega church. I don't have followers. I shepherd you back to God. I offer everything I do for free. I've offered the books for free, the videos, the phone calls, the text messages, the workshop, the Bible study, the assemblies. I had better live a life that reflects who I claim to be. And guess what? It is not comfortable. Every time God promotes me to more responsibility, he brings me low in order to promote me. How about that? So he's just got me lower and lower and lower and lower. Serving. You must become a slave. I want you to understand that, because that's not what you're seeing. I know that's not what you're seeing in the world. I know that the way that I live would not be attractive to you in the flesh. It would never be attractive to your flesh. I know that if you can hear the things that I say, that it's only because he has enabled you. And so I ask you to go to him and ask him to confirm either way, yes or no, true or false, if I'm doing what I say I'm doing. If this is the position he's placed me in, and if he's placed me in that position, then you can know that everything that I am telling you about the end times is true. That everything that I'm telling you about that Antichrist reign coming in a little over 2 years, about me dying in a little over 2 years, about the trumpets and the covenant and what you need to be doing right now, you can know with certainty that what I'm saying is true. I'm going to leave the video at this. I'm going to do a part 2 to talk with you about the property and how God built me in this particular role that he has me in. But I want you to discern what I'm saying. I want you to discern if what I'm telling you is true.